So a lot of people are calling him Eddie Jones 2.0.
Who?
Your mate, Steve Borthwick.
We've got to get better this week.
What's going on behind the scenes with England?
Oh.
You know, you've had Aled Walters has jumped ship to Ireland.
Yep.
Citing personal reasons.
Yep. Family.
Yep. Fair enough. But then Felix Jones leaves and he says it's an unstable working environment.
What do you mean? What do you know, Rob?
That's a direct quote from Felix.
What do you know?
Well, what's going on?
Well, we had a really good tour, but I remember chatting with Biggs, and Biggs went, "Really? Was it a really good tour?" And then I thought about it. No, it wasn't.
Do you still think it was a really good tour now?
What now? Argentina went and beat them as well. Argentina put 67 points on the Aussies as well. It looked from the outside like a positive step in terms of you could see the identity of the team, and we chatted about it, didn't we? The defence and all that stuff. And then to get back, and when you're looking at the RFU in England, you've got Aled Walters, who supposedly, and I've obviously never been trained by him or anything, but he's got the reputation, World Cup winner in South Africa, one of the best, if not the best in the business in his field. To have him in the fold with England, and what I don't understand is how he can leave and go straight to Ireland, who are the number 2 team in the world at the minute. And then you have Felix Jones, who's back-to-back World Cup winner with South Africa. It was a massive thing to get him as your defence coach. And I know there's this big thing, he's handed his notice in, there's a 12-month notice period and all that stuff, but he's cited an unstable working environment.
What does that mean, though?
Do you want the truth, or do you want to fluff it, or do you want the truth?
It's with the truth. This is what we're doing here.
Okay, well, the truth is, and people are saying Eddie Jones Mark II, Steve Borthwick was Eddie Jones's protege, right? Eddie Jones worked people to the ground. I read he had 20 assistant coaches that he went through in his tenure as England coach, which is a ridiculous number, right? But Steve obviously has been coached by him and mentored by him. And I know people at Leicester that worked with Steve said it was fucking hard. And sometimes a hard environment's a good environment, right? But if you're a coach and your boss, you're not enjoying the environment with your boss in whatever walk of life you do, if you feel it's not right for you because he's working you too hard, or you're not getting the family time and all this stuff, and we're talking about evolution of you as a player, Dan, going to France and the different things you get, and we've gone to France and done stuff, and we've then retired. If your boss in whatever walk of life is hammering you, or you feel that he's hammering you every day and you're not enjoying the environment, you ain't going to stay there.
It's funny that, Goodey, because I think under Eddie, I think there certainly was that perception, wasn't there? Or like you said, going through.
Well, I know good people that were under Eddie that said it was hell.
But knowing quite a few of the English lads in the current squad, they have said that the tour and the environment, especially towards the end of that Six Nations, where we spoke about, didn't we? Where we started to see almost as if the shackles were released a little bit, weren't they? Speaking to a few of them, they said that the environment is very different to what it was perceived under Eddie.
But they all said under Eddie it was a great environment as well. Let's not forget that. Because when you're playing, you can't say anything else.
I still think that under Eddie, it was like, not dreaded going into camp, but it was like, fuck, you're in for an absolute shift here.
Yeah.
Whereas I think from speaking to a few of the lads, they have said that the environment seems a lot brighter and a lot more relaxed than it has previously, but maybe in the last 12 months even under Steve. So it for me, it seems strange that hearing that, but then losing 2 key members of the backroom staff to go with that, off the back of England gaining what we thought was a little bit of momentum and finding a bit more of their identity, wasn't it?
And what I will say on that, Biggs, and I completely respect it, and I know the lads have said that, and I've spoken to a few as well, massive difference between the lads that are playing and the coaches that work directly for Steve. And I think that's the big storyline here. Felix Jones has been touted as the best defensive coach in the world in the current sort of climate of coaches, back-to-back World Cups. He's made a big difference in how England were defending. You could see it. He just doesn't want to work for Steve. And that you can't get away from that. In making that statement, he doesn't want to work for Steve in that way. And Steve's got every right to have an environment how he wants because he's a head coach. And ultimately, you live and die by how you create an environment and the results that come off the back of it. And if you get to the end of a job, you get sacked or you choose to move, you look back on it and go, I did it my way or I didn't do it my way. And so you've only got to respect Steve for how he handles the environment. But if it doesn't suit some people, and you've got mates that have coached at Leicester that said it was fucking brutal, right?
Yeah.
Under Steve.
And that's part of it. Is I don't want to overshare. It's not my place to do that, but it's quite obvious now when you see two of the best coaches in the game, which England got. And we were talking about how good it was for England, the fact that they've now got Steve Borthwick in charge, they've got Felix Jones, they've got Aled Walters, two of the best in the business. You look at Felix Jones when we watched Chasing the Sun too, the influence that he had on that South African team. There was no probably bigger name out with the big names like Arasi and Eraser and the headline names that you could have got. And I was shocked. I didn't think it was going to come, because you think if you're an Aled Walters, I know he's Welsh, or you're a Felix Jones, and I know he's Irish, but you're getting closer to home. You're going to work in England, which is a big job, right? Because the way that they're funded, the pool of players they've got, all the coaches speak about that, and they both leave. You've got to be like, well, there's clearly something going on, because it's the pinnacle of a job, isn't it? An international job of an international top 3 team. And
top 3, are we?
Well, top 3, top 4, top 3 financially.
Oh, but, financially, yeah.
But the thing is,
we're not top 3 in terms of team.
And the harsh thing around it is, and I don't know whether you get this as a snapshot of the environment of the way that Steve is as a character, and you're seeing it more now. I'm not saying that every coach needs to be like Rassi Erasmus or Jose Mourinho or Razor, for example, but you need a little bit of that kind of charisma, the emotional energy and understanding, both with the fans, which Steve doesn't have. Like, he just doesn't have that. He's not a front man for the team, is he? And from what you can gauge, the fact that you've had 2 coaches walk away, he maybe doesn't have that emotional empathy for his staff either. And to do that job before you take an international job, a lot of the coaches would say it's actually easier doing that because you don't coach as much. So you get more free time with your family. And I think it's the opposite with Steve, because he is, which you have to be, and you've seen with Rassi, to name one, know a little bit about his backstory. You have to be married to that job in order to do it properly.
Yeah.
And
Steve works the longest hours probably out of anyone.
Of course.
And I think he expects the same or demands the same, and it just doesn't suit everyone.
So how much does this set England back in terms of losing Felix Jones? Just spending, what was it, just over a year or just under a year he was in the job?
Yeah. Well,
so how much is it sending back? And who's in line to take over this job?
Well, it's interesting because Kevin Sinfield was down to leave at the end of the New Zealand tour.
Same reasons.
Yeah.
I don't believe, and I just on that because Kev's a family man, everything that went on with Rob, maybe now because of what's happened to Rob, he has more time maybe to invest in his job. I don't really know, so maybe his personal circumstances.
So he was down to leave, but then there's obviously ongoing conversations now to try and keep him. Where'd you go?
Sean Edwards.
But he's in a job in France.
He's pretty
he ain't
happy
working. He
in
ain't
France.
to work for Steve.
I think the one thing I will say with Kevin Sinfield, and this is speaking to boys clearly who've played under Kevin, and look, he doesn't need me or any of us here to praise him for what he is as what he is as a human being. But boys say when he speaks in a meeting, the room is just deadly silent. Yeah. And if he says jump off a cliff, if he says run into this wall, if he says run 15 lengths of the pitch, the boys are doing it without even asking. So a big thing Sean Edwards always said when we were with Wales, he'd always say defence is about, his job almost is getting players to want to defend. Yeah. So the easy part is actually tackling and, counteracts and jackling and that thing.
Is it? That's fucking hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly isn't for me and you, Goodey, but his thing was always his job. He saw his job as getting boys to want to defend and almost have that enthusiasm for defence. Now, if Kevin Sinfield tells you to spend 10 minutes extra on your defence at the end of a session, or if Kevin Sinfield tells you to spend a bit more time on your defence rather than your attacking game or your kicking game, I think you'll find very few players who would say no to that. So I think that would be a huge advantage, obviously keeping someone like him in the squad. Because
the thing with Kev is he went in as defence coach, didn't he? And then he got moved to skills because Felix came in. And then is it hard to then say, actually, mate, do you want that job back?
Well, it depends what they're using for. England need a front man. Yeah. Steve's not the front man for the team.
Well, he is, though.
He shouldn't be the front man. You need someone that is wanting to do that role, like a Rassi. I keep going back to
Steve's
Rassi.
getting better. I'll give him his dues.
It doesn't matter. It's not about getting better.
Mate,
he's not made to do that.
What about someone like Lee Radford at Saints?
Okay,
another Northerner.
He came on here and he was loose lip. We had to edit a bit. Did we, Rob?
We did, yeah.
But he sort of changed Saints into a really attractive, free-flowing attacking side into a tough, resilient, difficult to beat side.
I read a shortlist today, and it had one name on there, the shortlist, because I was like, who's out of a job now that's any good? So again, the RFU, and the big question is, do you make Felix Jones see out his 12 months and make him coach? And you're in an environment now where, you're still playing. You've got a coach that knows he's going, and I'll come on to something else on that later with the Ospreys. You've got a coach that has got a 12-month notice period. You're going to make him work it, but he doesn't want to be there. He's handed his notice in. The players are going to listen. Obviously, you're playing for England. We're going to win. But that message that you're saying about Kev Sinfield, if Felix Jones is saying it, he only needs one person to go, he ain't fucking here next year. He doesn't want to be here anyway. He's handed his notice in. So it's a hard thing to know what to do. And then you're looking around going, who are the coaches? So the RFU, you mentioned Lee Radford, brilliant coach. He's going to be locked into a contract in Northampton. They spent £1 million getting Steve and Kev Sinfield out of Leicester a couple of years ago. Have they got to go and do that again? Just someone that's decent? Well, yeah. The one I heard was Nick Easter.
Yeah.
I read it somewhere. They're like, Nick Easter's doing a great job for USA. They just lost to Japan.
Good lad, though.
Minty's a good mate of mine. He ain't England defence coach material. Coaching China and USA. But who is it? That's the big question. What do you do?
Like you said, Jim, at the start of this discussion, it's almost the RFU is the richest union, isn't it? So I'm not saying it's ideal having to go and buy someone out of their contract or whatever. But if a union can do it off the back of selling Twickenham, and they wouldn't have sold that for a couple of quid, would they? You know what I mean? It would have been some serious figures.
Thanks, Allianz. We need to buy some coaches again.
So what I'm saying is, in terms of, I think if England want to replace like for like or top best in class, then they're probably going to have to go and spend some money and buy somebody out. Or
who's your defence coach at Toulon?
We haven't actually got a defence coach.
Fuck the defence.
Fuck
the defence.
Pierre Mignoni does a fair bit, but we actually haven't got a defence coach, which is strange, actually. But
it's a strange place to be for England, isn't it? Like, there was a momentum in terms of thought process of how we're performing and evolving, and then you lose your two top people in their industry. It's bizarre.
So what was the comments that were made? So Felix Jones
has said he cited an unstable working environment.
So
as the reason for handing
I love a bit of drama. Tell us more.
Well,
he wants out. He ain't seen that.
Felix, what are you saying?
That he ain't seen that.
He's not happy, is he?
But he's seen it more now. Liam McDonald with the All Blacks. That was interesting as well.
So I mean, we're looking from the outside in, and it was a surprise to the players. Some of the players have come out and said it shocked me a little bit. I didn't see that one coming. But you can only get inside someone's head if they're willing to answer the questions to you effectively, can't you? Without him doing more and saying more, he's not going to come out. We've all been there where you want to see something you don't agree with, you want to say it, but you can't, right? Like at my point of no one slagged Eddie Jones's regime and environment off when they were playing it, because you do, and you get Danny Kerr didn't get picked for 4 years because he said something. Right?
It's like the best coaches are the ones that pick you, aren't they?
Yeah, best coach in the world.
You know what I mean? And the worst ones are the ones that don't pick you.
Yeah, be interesting to see.
Yeah, but from what I hear, the environment is a lot better under Steve than it was for the players anyway. Than under Eddie. But for the coaches, it's different kettle of fish.
So much was made though, that blitz defence, wasn't it? And Felix Jones coming in, and then, we had this transition period. What happens now then with Felix leaving? Because obviously the replacement, do we continue that blitz, that hard D?
Or do Ireland start blitzing like a Morphock? Exactly the same way.
Is he going to Ireland, is he, Felix?
Well, I don't know.
What are you saying, James? I don't know anything. It's got 12 months.
Well, I imagine so. So if you had to put your money on it, where would you say he's going? Scotland.
No, I don't know, but he could go back to the Springboks. It depends what. So I'd say that his contract that he got offered by the RFU was the biggest on the table for him, and then to walk away from that, I think so. He's achieved 2 World Cups with South Africa. So for him, it was getting his value, right? Which he wasn't going to get in South Africa because the cash there isn't as free flowing. Yeah.
Everyone's talking to him. Yeah. All Blacks will be talking to him. Australia.
I think in terms of Rob's point, in terms of what do they continue with that blitz D, or if somebody new comes in, do they change the style of approach? I think for me, the way the international game is at the minute, you have to put opposition teams under pressure. You only have to look at the game on Saturday. I actually thought New Zealand played really, really well. And you look at South Africa's defence, it looks out of control, it looks loose. But the way that they put skills under pressure against this, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, cut above everyone else at the minute. And they kept New Zealand scoreless. So even though they got loads wrong in D on Saturday.
Hell of a scramble.
But scramble, line speed, forcing skills. And I think that's the way that you stop good players at test level. I think at club level, it's a different matter. I think you can get away with maybe not pressuring defences as much. When you get to the top of the top in international level, you have to have a D which puts opposition under pressure. You look at, you give, for argument's sake, you give Intermac and DuPont time and space on the ball, you're going to get killed. You give Marcus Smith time on the ball, you're going to get killed. You give Finn Russell time on the ball, you're going to get killed.
Give Dan Biggar time on the ball, you're going to get killed.
Someone's getting killed.
Someone's
getting killed. Possibly your own teams.
Go up in the air.
But do you know what I mean? I think whoever comes in, I think that's the way the game is at the minute.
Yeah.
I think that has to be continued with whoever comes in, whatever role you're in terms of whatever team or whatever side you're in internationally, you have to continue in that vein, I think.
So you've got to marry up a coach that coaches that way.
Yeah.
And believes in it. Because defence, like you said, defence is mainly about belief, isn't it? And basically, all you're going to see over the next however many months is fucking blitz.
So everywhere. Who do we think? If we've got to pick one, you said Nick Easter.
No, that's the rumour.
I know.
Biggs has convinced me. Lee Radford's the best, isn't he?
Well, I think he's had the biggest impact on somebody else.
Within England.
Won the league.
He's been a head coach before as well, rugby league, but you talk about wanting a front man.
He ain't a front man for England Rugby.
Fucking right he is.
He's a front man in the changing room to get the boys. Defence, it's like Sean though. Sean isn't a front man but he would be, Sean Edwards would have been the best at getting a team ready to go, right? I mean,
what Sean's best skills was, funny enough, it was his people skills.
Yeah.
He knew what buttons to press with each person. He knew who to put an arm around, how to speak to people, how to get a reaction. And honestly, I can tell you that Sean never stood in front of the laptop or in front of the meeting room for longer than 5 or 10 minutes.
He couldn't use it, could he?
That's a front man.
Yeah.
But literally, he said he delivered 2 or 3 key points. He said that was it. He said there's no point he used to hate boys bringing their notepads to training. To the meetings, like a load of coaches want to write everything down. He said, well, if you're writing things down in your notebook for 25, 30 minutes, so the first point I've made, you forgot as soon as you walk out the door.
Listening to what I'm saying.
Do you know what I mean? And so for me, I think apparently I'm speaking to the French boys as well, and they do the same drills as what we did for Wales.
You said he hasn't evolved. The game's evolved, but Sean hasn't.
I'm saying the best defense. I personally believe that he's the best defense coach that's been out there in the last 20 years in rugby union. His CV speaks for itself. And rugby's not a complicated game. I'm telling you, rugby gets overcomplicated. You win collisions, you compete for the ball, and you get your blitz off the line. You put teams under pressure, and that's all Sean's drills involve. And you do it at time and day after day, and it becomes like it becomes second nature to you.
Pod.
Rugby Pod.